There's so much for us to exchange and enjoy. Art has no boundaries, music no passport. Italy sent to Edinburgh one of her most valued possessions, the Orchestra from Rome. Priceless art treasures, no longer reposing in their own state museums, are now touring Europe for many more to enjoy. Things of beauty rise above the barriers of language. Masterpieces of the great painters are traveling in other countries, bringing beauty that needs no words. Today, there is a new foundation of understanding and cooperation in Europe. There's fellowship, too, in the field of industry. Precision watches, which used to be made in Switzerland, are now for the first time being manufactured in England. The British and Swiss governments worked out a scheme so that we in Britain could share their skill, their craftsmanship. But it's in times of distress that we can best show our friendship one for another. Just as the people from next door come round to help when pipes burst and the house is flooded, so Holland came to the rescue of Britain when the Fens were swamped 2 winters ago. From across the North Sea came experienced Dutch technicians with their dredging equipment. Our good neighbor has helped us through. But complete international cooperation in Europe is no new idea. Many attempts have been made in the past to secure greater unity. 300 years ago, Maximilien de Bethune prepared the grand design for Henry IV of France. This scheme set out to balance the powers in Europe with an international army and a general council. 50 years later, William Penn, the great English Quaker, put forward an idea that could have united unhappy Europe by means of peace rather than by strength of arms. Few people listened. Through the years, wars were followed by treaties. This treaty, signed at the Congress of Vienna, tried to achieve by statesmanship what Napoleon attempted by force, a united Europe. Years passed, more schemes, more treaties. So many pieces of paper, now worthless and forgotten. After the First Great War, hopes were raised again. Aristide, Foreign Minister of France, worked hard for the unity of Europe. But once the cheering died down, there was lack of interest, lack of support. Like the very buildings of the League of Nations, its principles were deserted. Statesmanship was not enough. But in the hearts of the people, there is still the wish to come together. It doesn't matter whether we're French, Italian, Swedish, or Dutch. We have the same hopes, the same fears. To us, the song of peace is the song of reason, the song of Europe unite. It was to this feeling of brotherhood that Mr. Churchill appealed at The Hague in May 1948.
Europe can only be united by the heartfelt wish and vehement expression of the great majority of all the peoples, in all the parties, in all the freedom-loving countries, no matter where they dwell or how they vote.
The wheels of cooperation were already turning. In Paris, discussions were held upon the offer of martial aid. 16 nations talked over their problems and how they could be solved within the vast plan of European recovery. It was more than a matter for discussion by statesmen. It was the bread and butter of the peoples of Europe. Mr. Bevin understood this when he said,
I invite not only this great conference, but the peoples of Europe to join in this great effort.
Martial aid was but a temporary lifeline. It was up to us in Europe to work out a permanent solution. So to London in January 1949 came the foreign ministers of the Brussels powers. Britain, France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands. They had already agreed to cooperate to the fullest extent. From their discussions developed the idea of a Council of Europe. 3 months later, at St. James's Palace, the Statute of the Council of Europe was signed. A council which includes representatives of all the democratic peoples of Europe. A council to safeguard the ideals which are our common heritage. It was to meet for the first time in Strasbourg, August 1949. One of the most international cities in Europe, Strasbourg was once a bone of contention between countries. Now it holds the key of understanding between nations. To this historic and noble city have come the representatives for this European Parliament. To the Hôtel de Ville has come a committee of all our foreign ministers. They are meeting in private and will pass on their problems to be discussed in public by the Consultative Assembly. The Consultative Assembly meets in the university. These are the representatives of democratic European countries. They will uphold the principles on which our liberties are based. Representatives from France, Italy, Britain, Belgium, Holland, Sweden, Denmark, Eire, Norway, Turkey, Greece, and Luxembourg. They speak for the little man and woman to make the dream a reality. Whether they succeed or not depends entirely upon us, the ordinary people of the democratic countries. For the men, women, and children of Europe, we hope for a new way of living, a new striving for the common cause of our continent, our Europe.